Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Welcome today to my review of the brand new GMT by Scottish Micro Marlowe. Now, fair warning, you might find this review shocking. I know I did, and it's shocking for a number of reasons. The first of which is I found myself enjoying wearing this watch on a NATO strap. I know, right? In fact, most of the footage of this watch will be of me wearing it on a NATO strap. Okay, I think we get the idea. I've never been a big fan of NATOs. I find them bulky and generally unappealing, but somehow this watch just really suits both the look and the way it wears on a NATO. It's a kind of fresh, summery, preppy looking watch, I think, particularly as I asked for it in the pastel blue colour variant, and it really just suits a NATO strap. The second thing that you might find shocking is that this watch features two chapter rings, one on the front of the watch and the second on the back of the watch. I kid you not, I've never seen this before, but it looks fantastic. Now, you saw the pop-up. This video is sponsored by Marlowe. I will therefore leave a link to this watch on their website in the description of the video if you would like to know more. Like I said, it's a brand new model. There are two colour versions available, what they call day and night, both limited to only 500 pieces of each. Let's flip the camera and prepare to be shocked. Okay, so unboxing a Marlowe is a real experience. Have you ever heard of another micro brand with its own quarterly newspaper? Me neither. It's a full tabloid size as well. Then there's a large pamphlet about the specific model you've just bought, full of lovely pictures and the inspiration behind the design. And that's before we even get to the inner box, which has a neat little card inlaid with a spec sheet and your unique serial number. Flip that over and it displays their tagline, "Time well spent." And being a Scottish brand, it is pleasing to see something that looks a lot like tweed lining the box. And there it is, GMT day model in pastel blue, sitting shockingly on a NATO strap. There are heaps of strap options to choose from, though you don't have to go for NATO. I actually asked Marlowe to send me 3 different ones, and I'll show you the others over the course of the video, but to my considerable surprise, it was the NATO I ended up settling on. It's one of those twill style ones, and the two colours really enhance the dial of the watch. The dial is definitely more pastel blue than Tiffany blue, definitely nice and bright for the summer, and a little bit preppy, I think, as mentioned. It's comfortable too on the NATO. It's not a super slim watch despite the Miyota 9075 GMT movement. Marlowe talks about a case height of under 11, but we all know that's a bit of a fudge because it doesn't include the glass, which takes it to mid-12s. Still manages to cope surprisingly well with a double pass NATO though. Let's get into the dimensions then, and here is the watch on one of those alternative straps. It's a good sized watch, this one, at 42mm in diameter, 12.5mm thick, lug length of 47, which is actually really compact for a 42, 20mm between the lugs, and on the supplied straps it weighs around 90 grams depending on which of them you specify. Only 50 meters of water resistance though, so not a true sports watch. Another reason why I'm fine wearing this one on non-waterproof straps. Box dome sapphire adds a vintage twist, and I already mentioned a Miyota 9075 true GMT movement. Let's have a look at the movement then, and let's have a look at that second chapter ring. I wasn't joking. That's effectively what this one has on the back end of the watch. Pastel blue to match the dial, proudly telling you that this is a 3 time zone GMT, a first edition, and was designed in the UK. Marlowe seemed determined to do their own thing stylistically. The Pacific I reviewed last year had a convex caseback which magnified the movement behind it. This GMT has that angled ring. It's very interesting and very nice. The 9075 is a nicely decorated 24 jewel hacking and hand winding Japanese made auto, by the way, with a roughly 40-hour power reserve when fully wound. Case finish is really good too. I'm going to show you a couple of different bits of footage here, gradually zooming in. I hope it does it justice. There's a vertical brush to the mid case, a high polish edge running all the way around the case top and bottom and around the lugs. I'm particularly impressed with the finish on the lugs themselves. You can see they've used angles and curves, all very nicely done, all very nicely integrated. Talking of angles, there's a slightly unusual kind of twister style coin edge bezel which offers plenty of grip, and a small but functional crown deep etched with the Marlowe M. And that is a big old piece of glass sticking out the top, combining a little bit of vintage with the modern. Pastel blue definitely still a modern colour, and I hope you like it because there's a lot of it here. It's quite a big dial, plus the indices are small relatively speaking, with oblongs at the 12, 6 and 9 and small applied circles everywhere else. I do like the fact that they've continued that run of circles at the 3, sticking a circle to the right of the date complication, the date frame. The front chapter ring is also really very small and also in pastel blue with even numerals donating every second hour for the GMT hand to line up with. There is a little bit of texture though to the main surface of the dial, which I think is a good idea because it breaks up the expanse of blue and prevents reflection from the sun. Now you saw from the case back, this is a 3 time zone watch. Home time tracked by the hour and minute hand, second time zone using the front chapter ring, and a third time zone, if you're keen, using the Arabic numerals on the stainless steel bezel. You can see here I'm moving it back and forth. It's a 48 click bidirectional bezel. Action is great and everything lines up as it should do. The bezel is very nicely done, by the way. Brushing is good, as is the paint fill on the numerals, as is the circular loom pip that sits proud of it. The handset is a little unusual though, halfway between daggers and swords with silver surrounds for the hour and minute hand and a needle second hand with a pentagonal counterbalance. Like I said, unusual. The GMT hand is a slender arrowhead, coloured red at the tip to make it visible because the stem is coloured pastel blue to make it invisible. A nice touch again. There's a silver frame around the date complication at 3. Marlowe appears to have used the standard Miyota date wheel rather than colour matching it to the dial as well though. There's a bit of loom on the hands and the indices and obviously the pip on the bezel. BGW9 for that blue glow. Not loom that punches you in the face when you walk into a dark space, but when I speed it up, as you can see, everything is still clearly visible at the end of my test, so everything clearly has been well applied. Alright, let's get it on wrist again and show you some of these alternative straps while we're at it. I asked for these 3 because I think they colour match with the blue dial best of the selection. The NATO has high polished hardware, which is fine. It could equally have had brushed, but that's the direction they went. The Marlowe M is etched into the buckle of all 3 of the strap options. There's a traditional padded leather strap with quick release spring bars. It's a bit stiff out the box, but then that will probably end up breaking in and lasting for a long while as a consequence of being stiff out of the box. Maybe it's a little bit redder than I would have liked though. I think blue dial really copes better with brown tones rather than red tones. And that is why I asked for this sand coloured fabric option. This is a great colour combination in my opinion of course, but the fabric strap is super stiff out the box. One more reason why I quite enjoyed this one on a NATO. Regardless of which strap you go for, legibility is okay. Hands being unusual, indices being small, and both being silver against pale blue, not offering a huge amount of contrast therefore. So it's a fairly big watch, but it doesn't really take advantage of its size to enhance its legibility. It is very comfy on that NATO though. I wouldn't say I was an instant convert. Maybe I can just see the possibility that some watches are more suited to this style of strap than others. Alright, moans and niggles. Well, perhaps one of the reasons why I'm enjoying this one on a NATO strap is because it's not available on a fitted N-Link bracelet. There is a straight cut N-Link metal bracelet, but we all know that's not the same thing. I'm sure they will lose sales by not having a dedicated bracelet option for this watch. And for the price they're charging, I'm sure they could have at least managed to offer a bracelet. 699 GBP, 780 USD, 1250 AUD is not cheap for a Miyota 9075. These movements haven't quite flooded the market yet, but there are offerings from Zelos and Bulova and many others, many of them considerably less than this one. Stylistically, it's a bit unusual. Marlowe's don't really look like anything else, and this GMT continues that theme. The hour hand and minute hand are very different, and there's a lot of space on the dial, especially between the pinion and the index at 6. No text there, which is a bold decision I think. Have a look through your own watch collection and then get back to me. How many watches have no text in that space? I had a look through mine, 0. This is the only one. Now I'm sure that will find it friends, but I'm sure that will also put people off just by the sheer space that you can see. And considering the 3-zone GMT is this watch's USP, those GMT markings are not particularly easy to read. The numerals on the chapter ring are very small, like very small, and the ones on the bezel aren't actually that much bigger. Have a look at both sets of numerals next to the date complication. That rather puts them into perspective. The date is by far the biggest of the 3. Maybe some of that open space on the dial could have been better utilised by making the GMT Arabics larger on both the chapter ring and the bezel. But let's be honest, nobody's buying GMTs at the moment to track 3 time zones, are they? They're buying them because they're in vogue. They're cool to buy, they're cool to own, they're cool to look at, they're cool to talk about, and after spending the last week wearing this Marlowe, the aesthetic is definitely growing on me. This is the 3rd Marlowe that I've looked at now, and I feel I'm only just beginning to get my head around them as a brand. They don't borrow inspiration from big brand watches, they seem determined to do their own thing. And you can see that immediately from the outer package onwards. Perhaps that means they won't have the mass appeal that many other small brands aspire to, but I'm sure they will continue to grow a loyal fan base that gets them and gets what they're trying to do. So there you have it. Credit to Marlowe for going their own way with this GMT. It doesn't look like anything else on the market. I'm sure that will attract some but repel others, and I'm sure that is just fine. I mentioned that I have reviewed 2 Marlowes previously. If you've made it this far, you really ought to check out one of those videos, shouldn't you? Click here or click here. Thanks for watching all the way to the end. I'll see you again in a future video.